Hey, this is Shane Greer, co-owner of Campaigns and Elections, here for another Campaign Tech interview ahead of Campaign Tech East on April 25th and 26th. I am here with Katie Spanbauer of Targeted Victory, and you're going to be talking about lessons we've learned in 2017. People often think like not a lot happens in off years, but a lot did happen. So what are the kind of key lessons that you've taken out of that year?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I'll be focusing on. I think one of the big things that we found and we were able to take time to test and found was creative fatigue and direct response.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone knows that there's creative fatigue and persuasion. I think it's pretty easy to see that you put a lot of money behind your campaigns. You see, not as much viewership. But we were actually able to spend more time this year looking at how creative fatigue affects direct response. How you can't just put something up and assume it'll continue to work.
Mm-hmm.
Forever. Like, you actually do have to change things out. Not dramatically, you don't have to do a ton of work to change it, but just change it so it's something new on your feed or anywhere else. And just creative in general, I think, was really important in 2017. I think in 2016 we kind of started moving there, but then 2017 we really got into looking at thumb-stopping creative. How do you make things for a mobile environment? Things that people want to engage with that are in this environment. We just don't want to take a TV ad and just put it
totally.
on.
Which is for the longest time was what people did, and even you saw that with people basically taking English language ads and then just repurposing them for Spanish language, which makes zero sense.
Yeah. No, I think that, and just thinking about we live in a 9:16 world. We're always on our phones. We don't normally just turn over our phones because the ads that way. So creating ads that are in the aspect ratio that a normal viewer is viewing content in, I think is really important. And obviously TV mostly is 30, 15s, but then how do you tell a story in 6 seconds? We saw explosion this year, YouTube bumper, which is awesome. But then how do you tell a good story in 6 seconds? I think some brands it's a little bit easier, but in political, how do we break down what we want to say in 6 seconds and amplify that message out?
And just on that specifically, a couple of observations. I mean, I was chatting with Julian Mulvey a little while ago about Snackables. And what really blew my mind is after seeing a bunch of Snackable 6-second ads, 30 seconds just felt so long. Now when I'm on YouTube, it's I desperately want the skip button to come up because I just don't care.
Yeah.
I want whatever it is you need to tell me in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, no. That's what we saw is, we can put a 30-second on there, but it's not going to be the first thing that people are going to want to watch, and we just don't see good completion rates with them. And in a skippable environment, when we've tested it, we just never saw really good completion rates of 30 seconds unless, kind of teased it out, put some 6 seconds in there, put a 15 in there, and then once you got that, you can get longer. I think there's a place for long form content. I think it lives somewhere, but I don't think it's the first thing people
do. You see Snackable as a gateway to long form? What is the main role of Snackable? Is it about communicating a message to people, giving them information? Is it a gateway tool to get them into longer form content? How do you deploy it?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few ways. You can either use it as kind of a gateway to longer form content. I think another really good way to use them is just to amplify your longer form message. So we did a case study with Google that showed that we were serving 15-second ads. They're skippable, but we were placing along with it bumper ads, and we found better ad recall obviously with the bumper ads. I mean, that kind of seems intuitive, oh yeah, they're getting more messages. But think about it, there's tons more bumper inventory than there is true view inventory, so you can really surround your longer form with this smaller content. So
yeah,
I think that's really important to keep in mind when thinking through a video plan.
Any other lessons from 2017 that stand out?
I think that, one of the other things that we saw was it's really easy, I think, for campaigns to just kind of get complacent after an election, or when it's not really hyper focused on elections. One of the things that we saw was that we can continue to engage people with using merchandise. Obviously merchandise has been around, but we had a few campaigns that sold some merchandise and really got a lot of people engaged, re-engaged with just the group in general.
Because I find merchandise fascinating. We at the Campaigns and Elections Read Awards every year. We have a number of categories for it. And the truth is, a lot of campaigns are really mundane with their merchandise, but then you always see some that stand out, that they've jumped on an opportunity, they've jumped on a story, they've thought about the candidate in a really creative way and have come up with merchandise that speaks to that. What makes for effective merchandise? What good examples can you share of merchandise that's kind of broken the mold and engaged people?
Yeah, so we had like a committee that sold ornaments during Christmas. So super timely. Talked about like it like referenced the White House. Those like performed really well. Able to sell a lot of ornaments, keep people engaged. I think like that is something. I think the most important thing with merchandise is obviously you can have like your standard items, but I think if you can obviously, like you said, like events that come up and you jump on it, it can be as simple as something like Christmas though. That like yes, it's always there, but it's things that like people will engage with. Like they might want to purchase, like donate to get an ornament to give to somebody.
Sidebar, just because it made me think of it, and it's not at all campaign tech related. It is the lowest of the technology things. Where do you stand on yard signs?
On yard signs? Ooh, I'm one of those people.
This is the most controversial question. People get so excited about this issue.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people that have really strong opinions. I don't. I feel like it's one of those things like I'm like one of those old people like you have to do it, or like if you lose, like it's the one thing they can point to is like
yeah.
I've worked on some races like in Texas. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and like we have yard signs like the normal, and I've never seen yard signs like Texas though. So I'm sure there's like
other
states
just bigger?
I mean, they're just like more. They're just like all over the place, which I don't know.
Well, it's just more real estate you got to cover.
Well, I guess that too. Well, that and they have like they can vote early vote at like grocery stores and stuff. So I think like it's more easy to get them there, where ours tend to be like more private property areas. So maybe that's it.
Thank you for joining us. You will be speaking at Campaign Tech East again, April 25th, 26th. Check that out. If you're watching this before that, if after, you can't. But watch the other videos at campaignselections.com on the video page, and of course on the CNE Facebook page.